الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما إلى علمنا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. نعم, inshallah we'll continue with reading from the book known as Tahdheeb At-Tahdheeb للحافظ ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala, Abu al-Fadl Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Muhammad ibn Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Mahmud. نعم, آسف, Abu al-Fadl Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Muhammad ibn Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Mahmud. نعم. على كل حال ابن حجر الأسقلاني, Abu al-Fadl Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who died in the year 852 after the Hijrah. Abu al-Fadl ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who died in the year 852 after the Hijrah. And we're still in the biographies of those individuals who their name is Ahmed. And we're now in those individuals who their name is Ahmed and their father's name begins with the letter Ha. And so Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, summarizing the statement of Al-Mizzi, who summarized the statement of Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi, he says, Kha, Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj al-Bakri al-Dhuhli al-Shaybani Abu al-Abbas al-Marwazi. He says the next individual we have, Kha, i.e. he can be found in Al-Bukhari. Kha, he can be found in Al-Bukhari. His name is Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj al-Bakri al-Dhuhli al-Shaybani Abu al-Abbas al-Marwazi. So his name is Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj al-Bakri, from the tribe of Bakr, al-Dhuhli, right, which is another Arab tribe. Al-Shaybani, which is another Arab tribe. Abu al-Abbas, his kunya was Abu al-Abbas, and he was Marwazi, right? He was an individual from Mar Shahajan, right? Maru Shahajan. And they pronounce it Al-Marwazi. And this is one of the words that it's important to know how to say, Al-Marwazi, and to not get it confused with Al-Marruzi. And there are other people who say that it should be said different ways. Some of them say it with a kasra, Al-Mirwazi, right? But the best way that some of them say to pronounce it is with a fatha, Al-Marwazi. Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj al-Bakri al-Dhuhli al-Shaybani Abu al-Abbas al-Marwazi. They say روى عن أبي ضمرة وحاتم بن إسماعيل وابن عيينة والدراوردي وابن مهدي وغيرهم. وعنه البخاري وإبراهيم الحربي والدارمي وعلي بن العزيز وإبراهيم الحربي والدارمي وعلي بن عبد العزيز وجماعة. So they say from his teachers were Abu Dhamra and Hatim ibn Ismail and Ibn Uyayna, as well as Ad-Darawardi and Ibn Mahdi, yani Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi, and other than them. So these are some of his famous teachers. So we see that this individual was off the rip. We can recognize that this individual is on the level of people like Imam Ahmed, i.e. in that generational range, right? The students of the tabi'een. His teachers were people like Abi Dhamra, Hatim ibn Ismail, Ibn Uyayna, Ad-Darawardi, two different people, as well as Ibn Mahdi, and other than them. Those were some of his teachers. They say from his students, from the people that narrated on this person, Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj, there is Al-Bukhari and Ibrahim Al-Harbi and Ad-Darimi, right, the famous scholar of hadith as well, Ad-Darimi, as well as Ali ibn Abdul Aziz, and a large group besides them. So Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj was a popular teacher. Now they get into talking about his praise and criticism. They say, قال الخطيب قدم بغداد وحدث بها فأثنى عليه أحمد. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, he says that this person visited Baghdad. He visited Baghdad and he taught hadith therein. Right? When he came to Baghdad, he taught hadith there. And Imam Ahmed praised this individual. Right? So all of those statements are supporting his validity. going to Baghdad, right? Baghdad during that time was the capital of the Islamic world and the center of knowledge. So him going to Baghdad shows a seeking of knowledge and a qualification, let alone him teaching in Baghdad. It's not like you could just go into the masjid and pop up and start teaching. You had to be qualified. And we see that Imam Ahmed praised this individual. So all of those are statements regarding this individual, Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj, his praise. He says, قال ابن أبي خيثمة كان رجل صدق. Ibn Abi Khaythama, Ahmad ibn Zuhair ibn Harb, Ibn Abi Khaythama, a scholar and a son of a scholar, specifically regarding the biographies and the validity and the criticism of people. Ibn Abi Khaythama, he said that this was a person of honesty. Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaj was a person of honesty. كان رجل صدق. He was a person of honesty. قال البخاري مات يوم عاشوراء سنة 22 و200. Al-Bukhari said that this person died on Yom Ashura, right? That day that we fast, right? The 10th of Muharram in the year 222. Al-Bukhari said that this individual died on Yom Ashura in the year 222. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, قلت وذكره ابن حبان في الثقات. Ibn Hajar, he said that Ibn Hibban mentions this individual in his book, Al-Thiqat, the righteous and reliable people. And Ibn Hajar, he goes on to say, and in that book, Az-Zahra, right, that book that Ibn Hajar used to help him identify the people that are mentioned in the 6 books, that author, who was an unknown or a very unknown scholar from the Muslim Spain, in that book Az-Zahra, he said that Bukhari narrated on this individual 3 hadith. So Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaj, you can only find him in Bukhari from the 6 books. So there's nobody else in the 6 books named Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaj except this person. And you can only find him in Al-Bukhari, and Bukhari narrated 3 hadith from this individual. Now, the next biography we have, Ibn Hajar, he says, seen Ahmad ibn Harb, ibn Muhammad, ibn Ali, ibn Hayyan, ibn Mazin, ibn Al-Ghububah, Al-Ta'i, Abu Ali, ويقال Abu Bakr al-Mawsili, Akhu Ali, ولجده Mazin, Suhbah. So this individual, he mentions a long name of this individual. He says seen. So this individual can only be found in An-Nasa'i's book, right? None of the other 6 books contain a hadith with an individual, with this individual. Who is this individual? His name is Ahmad ibn Harb. Ahmad, the son of Harb, the son of Muhammad, the son of Ali, the son of Hayyan, the son of Mazin, the son of Al-Ghadubah, who was from the people of At-Tai, right? At-Tai, right? He was from an area, At-Tai. And he was known as Abu Ali. And it was also said that his kunya was actually Abu Bakr. And he was, I'm sorry, not from the area At-Tai, from the tribe At-Tai, right? Bani Tai. Bani Tai. No, Tai Qabilatun Arabiya, right? So Bani Tai is a tribe that he was from. At-Tai, his kunya was Abu Ali, and it was also said that his kunya was Abu Bakr. And he was from the people of Mosul. Mosul is an area in Iraq, Al-Mosili. And he was the brother of Ali, meaning Ahmed had a brother named Ali ibn Harb. And their grandfather, one of their great-grandfathers, Mazin, was a Sahabi. So this person's name, Ahmad ibn Harb, ibn Muhammad, ibn Ali, ibn Hayyan, ibn Mazin, ibn Al-Ghadubah. Mazin ibn Al-Ghadubah was a Sahabi. One thing if you all are noticing, there's a formula in how Ibn Hajar is mentioning these biographies. When they mention a name and identifying a person, right? There's a formula in how they go. They mention the person's name, and then the person's nesab, and then the person's tribe. And they go the more general and then the more specific, right? If you're going to mention tribes, you start with the more general tribe that they're affiliated to, and then you mention the more specific one. And then he mentions the kunya, and then he mentions where they're from and what they did. And this is the order of the people of hadith in mentioning, identifying information about a person, right? They even talk about it in the books of Mustalah al-Hadith. When you're writing a biography, right? When you're writing and identifying a person, this is kind of the order that you want to follow. You want to start with the person's name, right? You don't necessarily want to start with their kunya. You start with their name. And then you start after their name, their lineage, their nesab, their father, grandfather, great-grandfather, etc. And then after that, you mention their tribe. What tribe did they belong to? And when mentioning the tribe, you start with the more general tribe, and then you start narrowing it down. So, for example, the last individual, we said he was Al-Bakri, Al-Dhuhli, Al-Shaybani, right? And you start narrowing it down. Also, after that, they mentioned the kunya. After they mentioned the name and the lineage and the tribe, then they mentioned the kunya. And then after they mentioned the kunya, they mention where the person is from, his affiliation, regionally speaking. Al-Marwazi, Al-Mawsili, like that. And then they mention if they had a nickname or like an occupation that they were known by. And like this is a kind of a formula that they follow. And so that's always something to pay attention to, because it can help you identify what is what in the biography. Like how my tongue slipped and said At-Ta'i is a place, but it's not a place. It's an affiliation to a tribe. And I could know that even if I didn't know what At-Ta'i was, because of the order that it's mentioned in the biography of the person. So they say that this individual, Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Hayyan ibn Mazin ibn Al-Ghadhuba At-Ta'i, he was from Bani Ta'i. His kunya was Abu Ali, and it was also said that his kunya was Abu Bakr. He was from the people of Mosul, and he was the brother of Ali. And his grandfather, one of his great-grandfathers, one of his ancestors, Mazin, had companionship, i.e. he was a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, this person's great-grandfather, one of this person's ancestors. From his teachers, they say, Rawa an Ibn Uyayna, wa Abi Muawiyah, wa Ibn Idris, wa Ibn Fudayl, wal Muharibi, wa Ibn Ulayya, wa ghayrihim. This person from his teachers were Ibn Uyayna, yani Sufyan ibn Uyayna, and Abu Muawiyah. Abu Muawiyah is what? Kazim? I got to know, because I've been meaning to refresh myself on it. He's a famous scholar, Abu Muawiyah. And so you want to know his name, because when you hear him, Al-Darir, Abu Muawiyah Al-Darir, Muhammad ibn Khazim. Muhammad ibn Khazim, Al-Darir. Right? So when you see this name, Abu Muawiyah, talking about the scholars of hadith, this is who they're usually referring to. Right? Muhammad ibn Khazim, Al-Darir. So from this individual's teachers were Ibn Uyayna and Abi Muawiyah and Ibn Idris. I'm not sure if that's Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i or other than him. And Ibn Fudayl, and Al-Muharibi, and Ibn Ulayya, Ismail ibn Ulayya, and other than them. Right? So this person had a lot of famous teachers as well. And you can already see that he is in the generational period of the contemporaries of Imam Ahmed, right? If not a little younger. Those were from his teachers. And from his students, they say, Rawa anhu an-Nasa'i wa akhuhu Ali wa Abdul Rahman ibn Akhil Imam wa Makhul al-Bayruti wa Abu Bakr ibn Abi Dawood wa ghayruhum. From this person's students was an-Nasa'i, right? And his brother Ali, right? This individual's brother, Ali ibn Harb, not Nasa'i's brother, but An-Nasa'i, Abdurrahman ibn Shu'ayb, and this person's brother, Ahmed's brother, Ali ibn Harb, as well as Abdurrahman ibn Akhil Imam. And right there, I'm trying to figure out who that is. Abdurrahman, the nephew of the Imam. And I don't know who Abdurrahman, the nephew of the Imam, is. That's something to look up. Abdurrahman ibn Akhil Imam. Abdurrahman ibn Akhi al-Imam. So, al-Dhahabi, okay, so this was a person who was known by this name, Ibn Akhil Imam, right? That was his nickname, the nephew of the Imam. Who was he? He was Al-Hafidh Al-Muhaddith Al-Imam Al-Rahal Musnad Al-Halb wa Imamu Jami'iha Abu Muhammad Abdurrahman ibn Ubaydullah ibn Hakim Al-Asadi Al-Halbi wa yu'raf bibni Akhi Al-Imam Abdurrahman ibn Ubaydullah Abdurrahman ibn Ubaydullah. Now, so from this individual's students were An-Nasa'i and his brother, this individual's brother, Ali ibn Harb, as well as Abdurrahman, the nephew of the Imam, as well as Makhul al-Bayruti. Makhul al-Bayruti is not the Tabi'i Makhul, but this is a different individual named Makhul, and that's why they called him al-Bayruti, right, from Beirut. As well as Abu Bakr ibn Abi Dawood, the son of Abu Dawood, the famous scholar, Abdullah ibn Sulaiman, and other than them. So these were some of his famous students. And you see in his students, they're a little younger than the generation of Bukhari, right? And so this individual, he caught somebody like Ibn Uyayna, who died 198, and Bukhari didn't even catch Ibn Uyayna, right? Bukhari didn't catch Ibn Uyayna, but this individual caught Ibn Uyayna, as well as having students that are younger than Bukhari. And so this individual, we already can like start to see in our head that this individual is going to be an older individual who connects the later generation with the previous generation. It seems that he's going to be one who has a lengthy life. But those were from his students. An-Nasa'i, they say, قال النسائي لا بأس به وهو أحب إلي من أخيه علي. An-Nasa'i said that this individual, there's no problem with him. And he is more beloved to me than his brother Ali. So Ahmad ibn Harb, ibn Muhammad al-Mawsili, An-Nasa'i said he was more authentic, or he was more preferable than his brother Ali ibn Harb. They say, قال ابن أبي حاتم أدركته ولم أكتب عنه وكان صدوقا. Ibn Abi Hatim, he says, I caught him, meaning he was one of the people I was able to catch their time period and actually meet them, but I didn't write anything from him. When I met him, I didn't take any information from him. I didn't write any of his hadith down, but he was an honest and reliable person, right? He was a saduq. He was an honest and reliable person. They say, وقال صاحب تاريخ الموصل هجره أخوه علي لمسألة اللفظ وقد شارك عليا في شيوخه تفرد عنه بابن علية فإن عليا لم يسمع منه. They say that the person who wrote the book, The History of Mosul, and like we talked about before, those books that deal with the history of a particular area, or the tarikh, right? The history and the scholars that were in a particular area. This book, The History of Mosul, which was written by Al-Imam Abu Zakaria Yazid ibn Muhammad Al-Azdi. Yazid ibn Muhammad Al-Azdi, Tarikh al-Mosul. Tarikh al-Mosul. they have a PDF? Yes, alhamdulillah. And from the mercy of Allah upon us here in the West is that for those of us who can't travel to get books, Allah made it easy with the technology that you can download PDFs of most books. And it's something that you should take advantage of, right? If you're going to have a phone that has all of these gigabytes and terabytes of space, then let them be full of the books that you don't have the access to buy the hard copies. And then when you're able to buy the hard copies, go buy the hard copy. But until then, use the digital copy or print the digital copy up. These are things that a student should do. When you see a book mentioned that you might not have or that you want, go ahead and download it. And so the person who wrote this book, Tarikh al-Mosul, he said that the people abandoned, he says that his brother, yani Ali ibn Harb, Ali ibn Harb abandoned his Ahmad. He says his brother abandoned him because of the issue of Allah. Right? This is a famous issue that happened during the time of Imam al-Bukhari, al-Lafdhiyya, right? Those who say that when I say the Quran, it's created. My utterance of the Quran is created. And this was a statement that the Salaf, they didn't like. And they said that it was a way for the people of innovation to get their innovation advanced amongst the people. So the Quran is the speech of Allah, regardless where it is at. Whether I say it, whether I memorize it, whether I write it down, it is the speech of Allah uncreated. Yes, my performance, my vocal cords, right? My action is created, just like the ink in the page is created, just like my heart is created, but the Quran is not. But there were a group of people to try to, after the fitna of saying the Quran is created, they tried to say, well, no, the Quran's not created, but when I say the Quran, it's created. My utterance of the Quran, when I say the Quran, it's created. And the Salaf, they didn't approve of this statement because it was ambiguous and could be taken wrong. Right? Instead, the Quran is not created and shouldn't be said in any sentence that could make it seem that it is. Yes, when I perform it, when I do it, my doing is created. But the statement, Qul huwallahu ahad, that is uncreated. That is the speech of Allah. Who said Qul huwallahu ahad? Allah said it. And I am telling you what Allah said. So my performance is created. But what Allah said is not. So Qul huwallahu ahad is not created. The point of it is that when people started saying this statement that could be misinterpreted, a lot of the Salaf might have abandoned them for this statement. And this, as you all know, is some of the fitna that happened between Al-Imam al-Bukhari and Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhli, right? Which led al-Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, to explaining his actual stance and clarifying, which led him to write that book, Khalq Af'al al-Ibad, the creation of the creation of the action of the slave, where he clarified his position. And Allah knows best, the truth was with Bukhari in this issue. But even al-Bukhari wished that the fitna didn't happen where people misunderstood what he was saying. In any circumstance, because of this, people would boycott people who were saying this statement. And so this person's own brother boycotted him because of this statement. Now, and they say that his brother, Ali, had all the same teachers as him. So when you see it in the narration where it says Ibn Harb, it could be Ali or it could be Ahmed. Both of them have the same teachers. They say except that Ahmed was a student of Ibn Ulayya, and Ali never heard anything from Ibn Ulayya. So that's one circumstance where we can differentiate between the two of them if it's not explicitly stated which one it is from the two brothers, because they all shared the same teacher. They say, Wulida sinata arba'in wa sab'in wa mi'ah. ومات بأذنة سنة 63 و200. This individual was born in the year 174. So like I told you, he's going to be somebody who was really old. 174 is way back then, right? And they say he died in Adhana, and Adhana with the fatha on the first and second letter is a city on the Muslim borderlands close to Misisa. And we talked about Misisa the other day, and it was a city in Turkey. What do we say the name of it today in English is? Misisa. Al-Masisa today. Oh, Iski Mises, right? Al-Masisa, city in Turkey. And so this person died in a city called Adhana, which is on the border, the Muslim borderlands, the battlegrounds, which was close to a city known as Al-Masisa. And the year he died was 273. So we see that this individual almost lived 100 years. And so like we told you, when you see somebody like this who catches the tabi'in and his students are predominantly people under Bukhari, for example, you're going to see that this person had a long life. And so he was born in 174 and he died 273. So he lived to be about 99 years old. Ibn Hajar, he says, قلت وذكره ابن حبان في الثقات وخرج له في صحيحه وأرخ وفاته كذلك. Ibn Hajar says that Ibn Hibban mentioned this individual in his book, Al-Thiqat. And he also narrated on this individual in his authentic book, his Hadith Sahih. Ibn Hibban has a book in which he stipulated that all the Hadith therein will be authentic, known as Sahih Ibn Hibban. All right, it has an actual real name other than that, but most people know it by Sahih Ibn Hibban. And so he narrates from this person in that book. And likewise, Ibn Hibban documented this person's death in the same year that we've already mentioned, the year 273. I wanted to take more, but we'll take one more person and stop at that amount. And this person, Ibn Hajar, he says he's mentioning him for the sake of distinction. And these are things like that can really help you. So far, we talked about Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj. There is no other Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj in Kutub al-Sitta except him. Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj, who was he? Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj, Al-Bakri, Al-Dhuhli, Al-Shaybani. What town was he from? Al-Shaybani. I see it right there, but I can't remember. Al-Marwazi. There we go. Al-Marwazi. There is no other Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaj in any of Kutub al-Sitta except him. And he was thiqah. Likewise, there's no other Ahmad ibn Harb in Kutub al-Sitta besides this person. And you can only find his hadith in Sunan al-Nasa'i. And he was reliable. He was righteous and reliable. Ahmad ibn Harb, ibn Muhammad al-Ta'i al-Mawsili. But Ibn Hajar says there is another Ahmad ibn Harb besides him that's not in Kutub al-Sitta, who I'm going to mention for the sake of distinction. So who is this other Ahmad ibn Harb? He says his name is Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Muhammad. So not only does his father have the same name, his grandfather has the same name. Because the previous individual was Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Muhammad ibn Ali. And this person is Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Muhammad al-Bukhari. So he was from Bukhara as well, while the previous person was from Mosul. And he says that the person who I'm mentioning for distinction, his kunya was Abu Ishaq. While the previous person we just mentioned, his kunya was Abu Ali. And it was also said that his kunya was Abu Bakr. So this individual that Ibn Hajar is mentioning for distinction, Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Muhammad, he says from his teachers were Abihi wa Isa ibn Musa al-Hafiz al-Ma'ruf bi Gunjar wa Shaddad ibn Hakim wa Isam ibn Yunus wa ghayrihim. From this other individual's teachers, there were Isa ibn Musa Al-Hafiz, the scholar of hadith who was well known as Gunjar, as well as Shaddad ibn Hakim, as well as Isam ibn Yunus, and other than them. And from this individual's students, this other Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Muhammad, from his students were Sa'id ibn Dhakir wal Fath ibn Al-Hasan al-Bukhariyan. Right? Sa'id ibn Dhakir as well as Al-Fath ibn Al-Hasan, who were both from Bukhara as well. This individual, Ibn Hajar, he says, ذكره الخطيب. Khatib al-Baghdadi mentions him in his book, Yani Tariq al-Baghdad. He says, Ibn Hajar, and I mentioned him وذكرته للتمييز لاتفاقه مع الطاء في اسمه واسم أبيه وجده. Ibn Hajar says, and the reason I mentioned him was to differentiate between him and the one from Bani Tay At-Ta'i, because of how he matched, or because of the similarity in name between him and At-Ta'i, and their name and their father's name and their grandfather's name. Ibn Hajar, he says, وذكره الخطيب اثنين آخرين وذكر الخطيب اثنين آخرين لكن جدهما مفترقان. أحدهما اسم جده عبد الله بن سهل بن فيروز وهو نيسابوري وهو من طبقة الطائي، والآخر اسم جده مسمع وهو بغدادي من طبقة البخاري. Ibn Hajar, he says, in Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, he mentions two other Ahmad ibn Harb. Khatib al-Baghdadi, in his book, he mentions these two individuals, but he also mentions two other Ahmad ibn Harb. And Ibn Hajar says, but I didn't mention them because their grandfathers have different names. So these two, they were both Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Muhammad. But the other two, he says one of them, his grandfather was named Abdullah ibn Sahal ibn Fayruz. And he was from Naysabur. And he was from the same generational time period as At-Ta'i. He was from the same generational time period as At-Ta'i. And he says, as far as the other that Al-Khatib mentions, then his name, his grandfather's name was Misma'. So Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Misma', and he was from Baghdad, and he was from the generational time period of Al-Bukhari. And so these are the individuals that we covered today. We didn't cover everybody that I wanted to, but we covered Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj, Al-Marwazi Abu al-Abbas, Thiqah, right? Or somebody who was acceptable. He was in Bukhari with 3 hadith. And then we had Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Muhammad al-Mawsili. And this individual was somebody who was also acceptable, and he was in Sunan al-Nasa'i. And for the sake of distinction, there was another Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Muhammad who was Bukhari. He was from Bukhara. As well as Ahmad ibn Harb ibn Misma', who was also from Bukhara, and Ahmad ibn Ibrahim ibn Sahal ibn Abdullah ibn Sahal ibn Fayruz, who was from Naysabur. So those are the 4 people that we covered today. Next time we'll pick back up with Ahmad ibn Al-Hasan ibn Junaydib. Inshallah ta'ala. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. نعم. When do you think you will finish Sharh Minhaj al-Salikin? Inshallah, it's an ongoing thing every week. Inshallah, it's just the last 2 weeks. Last week the sheikh wasn't available, or the week before last the sheikh wasn't available, and this past this past Ahad I wasn't available. I was traveling. But inshallah, every Ahad, inshallah, that's the plan with Minhaj al-Salikin. When do we think we'll finish it? Whenever we get done. It's a long book. It's a big book. And I try to not burden the people with more than an hour. So you find us, like in the last class, for example, we asked the sheikh to stop with us, even though he was willing to go further, just because we don't want to make the things too long. We want to make the information bite-sizable. One thing to remember, the goal isn't finishing the book. The goal isn't finishing the book. The goal is understanding the book. So if you're doing Minhaj al-Salikin, right, you have a whole week to memorize the portion of the book, commit it to memory, understand the points that were being made, read ahead. So that way, if you have questions, when the sheikh is there, you can ask him the questions about what you're learning. Instead of, being random, various questions, you can actually ask the questions pertaining to a passage or a sentence that you weren't aware of. From the things that a student should often do is read ahead in class, right? If you're going to next week, we'll be finishing up Kitab al-Awani, or no, Qada al-Haja, right? At-Takhalli wa Adab al-Istinja wa Adab al-Takhalli, right? We'll be finishing up on that section. So you should finish that chapter and read the next chapter. That way, if you have questions, you can ask them at that point in time. But inshallah, the classes will be as they have been every Ahad after Dhuhr here in St. Louis time. And it's just as long as I'm available and the sheikh's available, then we will continue to do that on schedule. During Ramadan, we will probably do something on Siyam like we've done for the past years, but not before Ramadan. That's something during Ramadan, other classes stop and you use the season to talk about what is needed to be talked about during that season. Potentially this Ramadan, we'll probably do the Musannaf of Abdul Razzaq. No, I'm sorry, the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah, because we did the Musannaf of Abdul Razzaq last year. Or we might do a different Musnad or something like that, just reading different hadith on the season. Wa iyyakum, barakallahu fikum. Everybody in these books that we're covering are from the people of hadith, to the aspect of they are people that have been mentioned in the 6 books: Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Nasa'i, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah. And the goal of the book that we're translating is to have a resource for the people who have, for example, the English book, or they're capable of reading an Arabic hadith, but they don't have the ability to really get into the weeds on the books of the tarajim, the books of the biography and the jarh and the ta'dil of these people. And so this can serve as a resource for the people who want to start the process of how to grade a hadith, right? This is not the final lesson. This is just the start. And an individual, with whatever information they get, they want to start to apply that information immediately. So as you're learning the science of hadith and you're learning the biographies of people, you want to start applying what you know. Not that your answer will be right, but so you can start seeing the results of your education and you can start seeing where you're right and where you're wrong. So for example, right now, let's take an example. Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj. Now, we just learned about an individual named Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj. If I tell you that Al-Bukhari, and this is obviously a cheat because we know that it's in Bukhari, so it's authentic. You see what I'm saying? But let's say if it wasn't in Al-Bukhari, and I see that a person says that Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj narrated to us, that Anas ibn Iyadh narrated to us on the authority of Ubaydillah, on the authority of Nafi', on the authority of Ibn Umar, radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, that the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, إذا خرج إلى مكة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان إذا خرج إلى مكة يصلي في مسجد الشجرة وإذا رجع صلى بذي الحليفة ببطن الوادي وبات حتى يصبح. Right? That the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would go out to Mecca, he would make salat in Masjid Ash-Shajara. And when he would return, i.e. from Mecca, he would pray in Dhul Hulayfa in the Batn al-Wadi, right? In the middle of the valley. And he would stay there overnight until the morning. So when I'm reading this hadith, by learning these biographies, one, I'm already able to recognize Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj reliable, right? Because I read his biography and I know he's the only Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj in all of Kutub al-Sittah. Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj al-Bakri, al-Dhuhli, al-Shaybani, Abu al-Abbas, Al-Marwazi. And I know who he is now. He died in the year, what year did we say he died in? 227? What do we say he died? 220. He died in the year 222. Okay, easier. 222. And so I know about this person. So that's going to automatically allow me to start grading this hadith. Anas ibn Iyad. Okay, I don't know who he is, so I'd have to look him up. Ubaydullah. I know who that is. That's Ubaydullah ibn Umar al-Umari, right? Ubaydullah ibn Umar ibn Hafs ibn Asim ibn Umar al-Umari, thiqah, imam. Nafi', the freed slave of Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar. So I know this isnad. The only person I don't know is Anas ibn Iyad, so I would look him up. But because I start knowing these people, it makes it easier to memorize. So I know that the isnad is Haddathana Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj, قال حدثنا أنس بن عياض, and Ubaydullah, and Abdullah, and ibn Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه, عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان إذا خرج من إلى مكة صلى في مسجد الشجرة, صلى في مسجد الشجرة. And so it makes it easier to recognize the people. What makes the isnad easier to memorize, because you know who you know, and even the ones you don't know, you only have to memorize that one name. And then it also allows you to grade the isnad, because you're grading it because you know who these people are. So for me, this isnad is authentic on a limited grade, with the exception that I need to figure out who Anas ibn Iyad is. But since it's in Bukhari, I know he's authentic, but I don't know who he is. So I would still go look him up. And so it makes it easier to memorize the hadith. It makes it easier to grade the hadith. And this type of exercise makes it easier to memorize the hadith as well, because you're committing so much information to memory, you're working out your memorization muscle. And it pushes all of the batil out of your mind, right? Some of us are afflicted to have listened to music in Jahiliyyah, commercials and TV shows, and just random information that has no value. When you start working your mind muscle, your memorization, and committing to that information to memory, it starts pushing out the junk, right? And you start finding yourself disconnected to the junk, right? The music that used to roam around into your head that you couldn't seem to shake that jingle. Now what's roaming around in your head is Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj Al-Marwazi. Ahmad ibn Al-Hajjaaj Al-Marwazi, thiqah, right? He died in the year 222. حدثنا أحمد بن الحجاج المروزي قال حدثنا أنس بن عياض عن عبيد الله صح النافع عن ابن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان إذا خرج إلى مكة صلى في مسجد الشجرة وإذا رجع صلى في ذي الحليفة ببطن الوادي وبات فيه حتى يصبح أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, right? And so it starts giving you the ability to memorize easier. So that's why we take these exercises. And the goal of this book was to provide a resource for the children in the school when we give them assignments to grade a hadith, right? To start making them practice grading hadith, right? Okay, I write a hadith on the board, and it's your job to go back and find the people. And a lot of times you'll find that it's hard to find the people in English. And so the goal of this book's translation isn't part of our, getting familiarized with the knowledge of the Salaf. It's more so the intent is to eventually become a resource for practicing this skill of grading hadith. Naam. Well, how the itala? All of this, it didn't need me to say all that. So I apologize. Where were the people? Were they all people? Can we do Khalq al-Af'al al-Ibad? That's a good book. It's a big book. Maybe we could start it, but that's a good book, right? Something during Ramadan, that might be something interesting to start. Maybe. That's a good idea. It's a good book. Should I download those books even if you don't understand what it's saying, but I can read the Arabic? Absolutely. And even more than downloading the book is buying the hard copy, right? But it's never too early to start your library. You should be starting your library from the moment Allah puts in your chest a desire to learn. Because if nothing else, it will serve as a medium for you to increase your knowledge later on, or as an inheritance to leave behind for others. It's never too early to develop your library, right? And from the things that a student of knowledge can be blessed with is a love of books, right? And it can be a problem at times, but I guarantee, and some of them mentioned it from the statement of a Shafi'i, rolling around in the pages is funner than rolling around in the mattress. When a person has that shaghaf, that strong desire for books and the information that they contain from knowledge, and starts getting deep into books, it's from the best feelings that a person can have, and it gives you a sense of fulfillment, in addition to it being a wise investment. In addition to it being a wise investment. Books, guns, gold, and property are from the best investments a person can make. And three of them was the statement of Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala. Sheikh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala used to encourage people to invest in property, gold, and books, from what was mentioned to me. And I added the fourth one, guns. Being here in America, investing in firearms is a good investment, right? It's something that doesn't lose value and that can keep value and also have a benefit. Just like books, they keep value and they also have a benefit. Just like property, it keeps value and also has a benefit. Just like gold, it keeps value and has a benefit. So these are some of the best things you can invest in. And so, yani ni'ma, yani kutub, how blessed are books that not only are they beneficial for us, but they keep their value and they're a good investment. Now, Kitab al-Sitta do not narrate from Ahlul Ra'i. La, that's not correct. No, Kutub al-Sitta, remember, Ahlul Ra'i is a discipline about how they approach the text and how they would classically be more inclined to say what about, which led to analogy and qiyas, more than the people of hadith, classically. Classically, the people of hadith would say, don't ask me about it till it happens. While the people of Ra'i would say, what about, and make verdicts about things that hadn't happened yet. And a Shafi'i is somebody who can bind the two. And so, and like, I believe it's Al-Awza'i, we're going to come across it, if I'm not mistaken, in Sharh Usul I'tiqadi Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Al-Awza'i is going to say, we didn't criticize Abu Hanifa because of opinion. Everybody has an opinion. The criticism of a Ra'i is when the opinion is given preference over the hadith. But the thing is that the people of Ra'i, they might have had a more difficulty with hadith and acquiring it authentically than the people of hadith. But they all narrated from each other. And so there's details in this, and is it good Ahlul Ra'i and bad Ahlul Ra'i and things like that we'll talk about at a different time. Wafikum barakallahu wa iyyakum. I didn't specialize in anything. I'm not a specialist in anything. I'm just a small person who hopes to benefit more from what I read than you all, right? Like I say, these classes, this reading is for me. I do it, for myself more than I do it to be online. But from the advice of some of our mashayikh, to be present so that there is a fulfilling of the role that needs to be fulfilled, right? People shouldn't have to go to the people of innovation in America to hear about the Prophet's biography. There should be somebody Salafi doing it. People shouldn't have to listen to the people of innovation in America or in English-speaking places to learn about tafsir. There should be somebody Salafi doing it. And so for that reason, the stuff that we do on our own, the brother suggested that we just do it online. And it's easy enough to do. I was going to do it regardless. So doing it here is no big deal. But what did I specialize? I didn't specialize in anything. I'm not a specialist in anything. May Allah make us specialist in something. But we will say our love is for hadith. Our love is for hadith. As far as my degree, then it's Sharia. My degree, I got it in Sharia. But our love is for hadith. What books of Jarh wa Ta'deel would you find the rijal for the other books of hadith, like At-Tabarani, Musnad, At-Tayalisi, and Al-Bazzar, etc.? A lot of those books, they'll have books specifically about those people. A lot of those books, from the works that people do, is that they write books specifically about the people, that are in those books that aren't in the other 6. But the majority of the people are going to be in the 6 because the majority of the hadith are in the 6. And then when you add to that the Musnad of Imam Ahmad and Ad-Darimi and the Muwatta, you're going to have the majority of the people in what they call Asr al-Tadween or Asr al-Riwayah in the time period of narrating, right? When hadith was in its golden age, the 3rd century, the 2nd and 3rd century, right? That's really when people, or you can even go up to the 4th century and a little bit into the 5th century, people were still narrating hadith. But by the 5th century, right, 400, especially 500, the 6th century, it has started to wane down, and the asanid started to go into more individuals than it would be abundant as it was in the past. But you'll find books specific for those other books, like somebody who did At-Tabarani, the Ma'ajim of At-Tabarani, and the Musnad of Al-Bazzar is Al-Haythami, right? The teacher of Ibn Hajar, Al-Haythami. And he did single books about the Zawaid, and he also talked about the people in those books. And then he gathered all of those books, the 3 Ma'ajim of Al-Tabarani, the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, the Musnad of Al-Bazzar, and the Musnad of Abi Ya'la in a book that he called Majma' al-Zawaid, right? Wa Manba' al-Fawaid. And so that book, Majma' al-Zawaid, is a great book that a student needs to have. He has all the additional narrations from the Ma'ajim of Al-Tabarani, the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, and the Musnad of Al-Bazzar, and the Musnad of Abi Ya'la, and he organizes them by topic. Any book that's not in Kutub, any hadith that's not in Kutub al-Sittah from those books, he organizes them by topic and chapter by chapter, and then he talks about the isnad. He gets rid of the isnad, but he talks about the isnad in grading the hadith. So he'll say this hadith is so-and-so, and it was reported by Imam Ahmad with an authentic chain, except so-and-so, right? And so like that, you can kind of get an awareness about the people that aren't in the 6 books. Likewise, the books of history from every location, right? Like Tariq al-Baghdad is going to have a lot of biographies in it that aren't from the 6 books, because most scholars have passed through Baghdad, and so that's why that book is so big and so full of history, i.e. biographies. Likewise, Tariq al-Damashq by Ibn Asakir. Damascus was a famous city most scholars passed through, so it's going to be full of biographies that you won't find in other places. And then likewise, books like Jarh wa Ta'dil, Tariq, the different Tawariq, Tariq al-Bukhari, Tariq ibn Abi Khaythama, right? There's tons of books, and that's something that you'll study later, inshallah, in the science of Jarh wa Ta'dil. I mean, wa iyyakum, wa iyyakum. I pray that also that we can get knowledge and act upon it. May Allah make it sincerely for his face. Just send pictures of them to me on WhatsApp, inshallah. If you're in the Masjid channel, I can tell you the names of them and tell you what they are, inshallah. For the person that has books but don't know, just send me pictures of the covers and I'll tell you what they are and what they're about. Yes, an encyclopedia of Jarh and Ta'dil. There's a couple of them nowadays. Encyclopedias of criticism, encyclopedias of praise, encyclopedias of praise and criticism. Those are from the things that, you know, a lot of the modern students and a lot of the modern scholarship will write in. They'll combine multiple books together and make it as an encyclopedia of biographies. And there's tons of them. Or not tons of them, but there's a decent amount of them. And if you just actually Googled Mawsu'at al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, I'm sure something would pop up. I mean, wa iyyakum. I wouldn't recommend investing in a single compilation. That's not how knowledge is acquired. Knowledge is not acquired by taking the cheap way out, right? The single compilations are nice as a research tool and as something to have in your library for the sake of, I just need to go somewhere real quick to get an answer. But as a student, you got to have the classical books, right? It'd be a criticism of you as a student that you don't have Tahdheeb At-Tahdheeb. How do you not have Tahdheeb At-Tahdheeb and you're a student of knowledge, right? How do you not have these books that are the classical books? The contemporary books make things easier and they're like encyclopedias and references, but you have to go back to the source if for no other reason that how can you verify that the contemporary material is accurate as it relates to the classical material? You have to have the source. Even with Tahdheeb and Tahdheeb, right? We have the book of Ibn Hajar, but we also have the books that Ibn Hajar based his book on, because we need to reference something. We need to check. And that's something that Ibn Hajar himself mentioned in his introduction. You got to check the work of the people before you. Our religion is not just a religion where we take it because the person was a good person and a nice guy. We automatically default. Now, the scholars, they make it easy for us. And the fact that most of them have done this verification and this checking and this referencing. And so when you hear them praising a book like Tahdheeb At-Tahdheeb and recommending it for the student, it's not out of a blind, I heard so-and-so say it, so I'm going to say the same thing. It's because they referenced and checked it compared to some of the old and classical books, generation after generation, until it became known as, you know what, you can just rely on this. And so some of the more contemporary encyclopedias, they'll require that same checking and that same sincerity and authorship until the reliance becomes on them. But you still have to have the classical books. So it's okay to buy that one first to solve a need, but you shouldn't look at it as I'm going to invest in this one and get out of buying the rest. And that'll be something that will bring you sadness later on in life when the book goes out of print or you can't find it, right? These are experiences that we've gone through when, especially here in America, when there's a book that you want, like a book I haven't been able to get for so long, Al-Mukhtar, about the Din al-Maqdisi. Right? It's out of print and you got to find it. When you find it, it's expensive because nobody prints it anymore. And this is a book that you should have, right? And so don't look at it as I'm going to invest in one book and leave off the rest. Tayyib, inshallah. The Masjid WhatsApp, if you want the number for the Masjid WhatsApp to send messages to. Oh, you can't. I don't even think you can send messages to it, can you? No. Inshallah, I'll put the link for the Masjid WhatsApp in the channel description, and you can join the link through there and then just send me a private message with the books you have, inshallah. But I'll put the link for the Masjid WhatsApp in the description of this class, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.